Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is January 23rd, 2021. 2022. Still have to get used to that. You're now watching Real Talk with Ronnie, and we have a very, very special show tonight. My guest tonight is a powerhouse in New Jersey. He was a powerhouse from 1990 until 2004. His name is James E. McGreevey, and he is the 52nd governor of the great state of New Jersey. Now, prior to becoming our state's governor, James McGreevey served 2 years in the state assembly, served 4 years in the NJ State Senate, and then, of course, more than 10 years as mayor of Woodbridge, his hometown. Now, I know what you're thinking. My show, we typically talk to Republican candidates and officials. Tonight, we have a Democratic governor on our show. So what's going on, right? Well, the title of my show is Real Talk with Ronnie. And you know what? We can't truly have real talk unless we talk to everybody, right? And, we have friends that are Democrats too. And you know what? Let me just say this. Just because someone is a Republican doesn't necessarily mean that they're a good person. And likewise, just because someone is a Democrat doesn't mean that they're bad, and vice versa, right? We are, at the end of the day, all Americans. We all live in this great state, and we want to see it do well. So I'm very happy and very honored to have Governor Jim McGreevey on my show today. He is currently the chairman of the board at the New Jersey Reentry Corporation that's based in Jersey City, and we're very happy to talk to him today about his work there, about his life in politics, his time as governor, and just about anything else, right? So let's bring on Governor James McGreevey.
Ronnie, I'm just, for whatever reason,
Governor,
I'm having a little problem with the audio. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me? Yeah, I can hear you.
I apologize. I'm having a little difficult with the audio right now.
Okay.
I heard you perfectly for 2 minutes, and then it went out, so I apologize.
All right. Perhaps you can maybe log off and then log out.
I don't know whether it's on your end or my end.
Well, I can hear you perfectly.
I can't see. It doesn't seem to be sending. Come, Mike.
Well,
audio,
Governor,
everything's there. Up. Yeah,
Okay.
I can't.
Well,
I don't understand it, so I apologize. Why I can't hear you? I heard you perfectly in the beginning, and I can't hear you now. So I can.
Let me text you.
It just went out.
You can try. Okay, maybe you can try to log off and log back in. Hold on, let me shoot you a text.
My microphone is on, Ron.
Okay.
My camera is on, but I can't hear the great Dr. Ronald Joseph Lynn. I can interview myself, which would be pretty boring.
Okay, Governor, what I'm going to do is I'm
not that good of a lip reader, so.
And then just sign back in, okay?
Do you want me to call you back just to leave and start again?
Yes. Okay, so I believe the governor is trying to log off and log back in. I think that's what he should do. I believe there's a little bit of a problem with the connection. Governor, can you hear me now? Oop. It seems like his microphone is off. Okay. Well, while we work that out, let me just say that Governor Jim McGreevey is it's a New York Times best-selling author of his memoir, The Confession. I have a copy of this great book, and I hope to have a signed copy of this at some point in the near future. Anyway, while we wait for the governor to log back on, I'm very excited to have him on. We have a great show planned. I have a lot of great questions. I know there's a lot of things that the viewers want to know about the governor, about what he's been up to since he left office in 2004. And, we'll hopefully get a chance to talk to the governor about his thoughts on this past election, his thoughts on New Jersey politics, and what he hopes to maybe do in the future. Okay, the governor is here again. Let me bring him back on.
I apologize.
Okay. Governor, can you hear me?
I can hear you wonderfully. Thank you, and I'm so sorry.
Okay, perfect. It's okay. Well, James McGreevey, 52nd governor of New Jersey. Thank you so
And a
much for coming
testament
on
to
my
my
show. It's such an
technological
honor.
ineffectiveness.
It's okay. You know, my parents would be a lot worse. So
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
okay,
Thank
so
you so
Governor.
much. And let me just say thank you to you and for all that you do for the community. And I really am really grateful. And I caught the beginning of the introductory comments, but in this time in our nation's history, I mean, it's just so critically important that at the end of the day, we all understand that we share, God willing, a common vision, a common focus, and that is as Americans. And for democracy to work, ultimately, at the end of the day, it is what we
Right.
do together to make our nation stronger, our state better, and our community. So I'm really grateful. So thank you.
Sure. Okay, so Governor, I know that most people in the state, especially if you work in politics, if you're in politics, everybody knows you, right? But for some of the younger folks, right, some of the Gen Xers, right, who may not know you, can you give us a little rundown on who is James E. McGreevey?
Sure. Well, Jim McGreevey, I should say this. So, in terms of the Generation X, and this is probably so politically incorrect, but I mean, I have a friend of mine who hires a lot of our gals and guys who come out of the reentry program, and he says, somewhat jokingly, that he'll hire court-involved persons first, Gen Xers second, because so many of the guys and gals that come out of our program, they have incredible work ethics. They want to work. They want to pay their bills. So I will be nice as to Generation X. But in any event, where my family, my grandparents were immigrants to this country. In fact, today, Ron, I was walking in Liberty State Park and I walked past Ellis Island and Miss Liberty, and you saw that between the mid 18th, 19th century to how many millions of Americans passed through that way. So then my grandparents came to this country. They went to Jersey City. On my dad's side, my grandfather was a police officer in Jersey City. In fact, I have his picture behind me. And then on my mother's side, he was an operating engineer, a local 825. It was basically work, church, home. And my father and his brothers during World War II, his older brother went to the Marine Corps and gave his life in the Battle of Iwo Jima. My dad was in the Corps in World War II and then re-enlisted in Korea. I would add slightly crazy, and then served as a Marine Corps drill instructor. His other brother was in the Navy, and my mother's brothers, one was in the Navy and one was in the Corps. We grew up, we're in Jersey City, grew up in Middlesex County, Carteret, and went to high school, college. My first job was an assistant prosecutor in Middlesex County. And then I worked for Merck and Company, was an assemblyman, as you noted, kindly noted, Mayor of Woodbridge, which was a phenomenal job because we realized the strength of America is its communities, a job that I loved. I was in the state Senate, ran for governor against Governor Whitman. It's a close election,
Right.
very close election.
Yeah, I think in that election was like 47 to 46%, right? You lost
My
by a hair.
Here, I remember at 11:37 at night. Not that I remember, Ronnie, that I was governor, and then votes came in from the northwest part of the state, and I was in any event. But it was a great race, and you know what? It was. I have great respect for Governor Whitman, her elegance. I'll give you one anecdote though. When the race had just started, on the front cover of the Star Ledger was this incredibly lovely, if not elegant, majestic photograph of Governor Whitman in a full-length gown. And she had just raised $3 million, I think in Bergen County. And that night,
Okay.
I raised 12,000 at a local VFW. And I said to one of my friends, "Is like, what am I doing?"
Okay.
And it was like climbing up the proverbial hill. But I mean, one of the great things is it was a great race and something I really enjoyed. And then I ran for re-election against Mayor Schundler of Jersey City, and that was a great opportunity. I won, was elected, and we began to focus on a lot of the issues that I consider to be important, most significantly early childhood literacy. Um, Sometimes we forget that if a child can't read by the time he or she's in third grade, because when they're
Mhm.
in fourth grade, the reality is, Ronnie, they need reading for history, they need reading for science, they need reading for the whole host of subjects, so that if they don't have adequate reading skills, tragically, they fall ever behind. So it was early childhood literacy, it was automobile insurance reform. We try to tackle property taxes, and then MVC reform. So like basic, if you will, basic bread and butter issues.
Right.
Then in 2004, I was engaged inappropriately in a gay relationship, and it was and I made the decision to resign. I resigned, left office, which obviously was a difficult period for my former wife and for my family and for the citizens of New Jersey. Then went to seminary, which was a great experience. They say ex-politicians always get God after they destroy their lives. It would have been better. I think I would have been better off getting our Lord before. But in any event, it was.
Well, Governor, my thing I read from one of your bios that before you went into politics, you had two passions, right? You wanted to go into the priesthood, and you wanted to get into politics. But at the end, it was the politics that actually won out, right? So
Well,
maybe had you got into the priesthood first, things
yeah,
might have been different, right?
but actually now what I do is ministry. So I mean, as my Irish grandmother would say, God works in mysterious ways. Because what I do now, what I love now, is prison ministry and working with people that are addicted for heroin, fentanyl, for young people coming out of prison, out of addiction treatment, out of county jail. So in the long way. You know, you can wrestle with the Almighty, but you only win when you surrender. That's my personal beliefs. But in any event, and so then I went to
Right.
seminary. And then I worked with women for 3.5 years, and that was a profound experience. Working with women behind the wall in county jail, and then job training program in Jersey City with Mayor Fulop, and then building, if you will, something called the New Jersey Reentry Corporation. First with Governor Christie, who was a tremendous champion of addiction treatment, of second chances, and now Governor Murphy, and working with the legislature on a bipartisan basis. Senate President Sweeney, Senate President Scutari, then Speaker Prieto, Speaker Craig Hofflin. I've got to be extra nice to Craig because my father does all of his veterans outreach. But in any event, so it's just and John Bramnick, and I can say Republicans and Democrats. I mean, the great thing about New Jersey on certain issues, particularly Ron, on the questions of addiction, on the questions of addiction, of treatment, of medication-assisted treatment. When you look back at the history of New Jersey, there were, I mean, literally lions, people like Tom Kane and people like Jim Florio, people like Christy Whitman, that understood that addiction was an illness long before the state did. So I'm just blessed to be in this space and to work. In fact, many of those persons I just named serve on our board. And so it's just a great opportunity now at this point in my life. They say in your second half of life, it should be about service, not self, giving back. And so that's where I'm blessed to be. So that was the long version.
Okay.
There's a short version out there, Ronnie. Thank you for your patience.
Sure. Okay, well, Governor, so you're now, as you mentioned, you're now currently the chairman of the board at the NJ Reentry Corporation. Can you tell us a little bit about what the Reentry Corporation does and what is its core mission?
Sure. I mean, so Ron, if you look back in terms of New Jersey and the nation, I mean, the reality is that the United States of America has 5% of the world's population, but numerically we have 25% of the world's incarcerated population. That means we incarcerate a disproportionately significant number of our fellow Americans. And it's not, I would suggest, not that Americans are more malevolent or evil, but I think in large measure, and I think, Governor Christie and Governor Murphy all got this right, as did Governor Whitman and Governor Kane and Governor Florio and Governor Corzine, is that we at some point in our history made the decision that hospitals for the mentally ill were inappropriately designed. In certain cases, they were horrific, I mean, patently horrific. And so I think there was a willingness at an early stage to begin to close our mental hospitals. And then there was also an inability to grapple, I would argue, in a thoughtful way with the addiction crisis. And so the addiction crisis, unfortunately, became addressed largely in county jails and state prisons. And I think this needs to be said. When there was the epidemic of cocaine in urban areas, largely among the African American community, it was about get tough on crime. And it was not only until, bluntly, the opioid crisis hit the majority community, whether that was in the state of New Jersey or West Virginia or nationally, that people began to realize that we weren't going to lock our way out of this crisis. And so I think both in terms of on the mental illness front, Ron, as well as in terms of addiction, there was a quandary. Law enforcement, public policy experts, legislators, it was difficult to grapple with. So what I see every day, and I think we've gotten somewhat better on the addiction front. I think we have bluntly a long way to go on the mental health front, is that there was a growing emergence that we need to do far better on addiction treatment. And that is whether it's detox, and you have Bergen Pines, you have Hackensack Meridian, you have RWJ, you have great institutions. But the point is that people need the benefits of clinical treatment. They don't need to be in whether it's a county jail or state prison, whether it's for 180 days or for 18 months. That's not going to address the threshold issue. And we see that right now. We do a lot of work with veterans, men and women. We just had a conference. I would just encourage people to look online. We had veterans from Afghanistan, predominantly Afghanistan, and some from Iraq, that had done a number of tours of duties. And by virtue of, bluntly, the pain that they had suffered, whether it's gone AWOL for a few days or whether it's addiction, and then at some point in time, the Department of Defense or the branch of service, and some branches are tougher than others. I mean, particularly the Marine Corps, and I get that. But the sad reality is that the discharge by the Corps or by the Department of Defense, Ron, in large measure determines the scope of mental health and addiction treatment and medical benefits. And so ironically, the people who may need it most have access to it the
least, right?
Particularly if they have something called, quote unquote, other than honorable discharge. So, I mean, so it's across, I think it cuts across our state on the addiction front to the mental health, but I think we're getting on mental health. And I think there's a strong bipartisan basis to understand, particularly in the aftermath of the opioid crisis and fentanyl. I mean, the overdose numbers, Ronnie, typically in New Jersey are 3,000 plus a year, every year,
Right.
year in and year.
Tragic.
And on mental health, though, I don't think we have done as good a job. I mean, part of it is when the person is coming, whether into a police station or to county jail, it's difficult to discern one's mental illness. There's something called a compass assessment. It's a relatively short measure. But I also think in terms of our criminal justice system, those persons that are mentally ill are best placed in a mental health step down unit and not a county jail, not a state prison. So the same way that we have persons that are suffering, whether it's from cocaine addiction or heroin addiction or fentanyl addiction, we have those people now in detox or residential treatment or intensive outpatient or something called MAT. If I can make a plug for MAT, that's medication
Sure.
treatment. I mean, the point is, and I just bluntly came to this a lot later than many people, a lot of doctors that I have great respect for. Ramon Sokol at Hackensack Meridian, Dr. Petros Lavonis, chair of psychiatry at Rutgers, Erin Zerbo, they all recognize that fentanyl was so corrosive, did such profound neurological damage, the necessity for Suboxone, buprenorphine, or Vivitrol to help people stay off of, and I won't go into the whole complicated because my knowledge of it is less than a thumbnail. But the point is that fentanyl is so powerful, is so corrosive, the need to have medication literally to battle the addiction. So what I'll say is what we do is this is a long way of answering. We have 13,000. By the way, Reverend Bolivar Flores, who works in our ministry, is also listening. So when I get off here, he's going to tell me how bad I was and how I rambled. But we have.
Well, can I ask you something, Governor?
Sure.
So the Reverend, he posted this website, njrc.org. Is this the website for the Reentry Corporation?
Yes. And just so.
Okay, because I have this as the website. So which one is the correct one?
No,
Is it NJ Reentry?
I would do the one that you have right now, www.njreentry.
Okay.
And
Okay.
what we do is we have 10 sites all throughout central New Jersey and northern New Jersey. And what we do is when people are coming home from addiction or people are coming home from prison, we do a basic assessment with a licensed social worker. And we have a great gal, Suzanne Herman. She's our clinical director. She was previously on the board of social work. We have a great medical director, Gloria Bachman, and our former medical director is now at the White House, Dr. Akash Shah. And they do something called a biopsychosocial. And the purpose of that is to determine, all right, Jim McGreevey just came home. What are my unique challenges, my medical challenges? What are my challenges in terms of grappling with everything from housing to food, to psychiatric, to mental illness, to mental health and medical challenges. And then after that basic biopsychosocial is done, and people forget how simple, Ron, this is getting an ID, a motor vehicle commission ID. And I think for all of us who have a wallet with a credit card, with a license, with maybe an old college ID or whatever, you forget the importance of an ID. But without an MVC ID, you can't get a job. You can't access whether it's Medicaid, federal, state benefits. So the first thing we do is we work to secure an ID. And then it's federal and state benefits. And the reason why this is important is to get people on their feet. And that is to make sure that they have, whether it's general assistance, whether it's general assistance or food stamps, to serve that bridge. And then at the end of the day, we also provide them with Medicaid to make sure we get them the medical treatment they needed. So the old way, I think the old way, Ronnie, was, you get some gal or guy a job, and then you put them out there, and then you say, all right, God willing, they survive 6 months.
You're kind of just like, I know. Right?
Pardon?
No, you were saying that the old way was that you get someone a job, you would just send them out and just hope that everything goes okay, right? But now it's different.
It would work. But if they have an addiction problem, if they are suffering from mental health or some concerns, you need to make sure that you have the benefits of that person is stabilized. And that's the kinds of things that we are doing. So it's getting that ID, getting those federal and state benefits, whether it's SNAP, food stamps, general assistance, Medicaid, connecting them to housing, connecting them to addiction treatment, and then getting them a job. And that's so important. You know, my dad used to say the best social welfare program in the world is a job. A job gives dignity, it gives work. And when we just had UPS hire 62 of our persons at our Newark site. And, you know, whether it's our Hackensack site, where we work with a lot of folks, candidly, that are suffering from addiction, or Monmouth or Ocean site, part of this is understanding that people make bad decisions, sometimes because of their peers, sometimes young high school or college age kids, or sometimes, Ronnie, like when they'll take a pain medication, a Percocet or Oxycontin, and then they'll begin to shop for prescription drugs. And then at some point when they can no longer take that Percocet or Oxycontin, they move to heroin and then, God forbid, fentanyl. It is, as one fourth grade teacher told me, she said, Jim, I felt like I fell through the rabbit hole. And she lost everything. And, you know, basically now, after a long, difficult period, she's rebuilt her life and she's in a good place. So
Okay. Now, Governor, so the New Jersey Reentry Corporation, is this a program that all inmates have to go through
no,
after
well,
they
we
get
work.
out, or is it optional?
Great question. We work with parole, the New Jersey State Parole
Okay.
Board, and we have a great relationship with parole. And in our one of our offices in Kearney, New Jersey, actually, we provide for care for parolees, and I'm proud to say that even as of to last month, we had the highest employment rate in the state of New Jersey, because we believe that work is so critically important. But what we do, though, Ronnie, I think is important is we sequence the role of reentry, and that is, you know, there's a rational order: number one, number two, number three, number four. So we know what works, and we try to do it in a rational, ordered fashion. But no, we work with parole cooperatively. And then we have people that work with us that are max outs. These are people that are maxed out of the system. Now, Governor Murphy, for example, when during COVID crisis and the public health emergency, there were literally thousands of persons let out. And on February 8th, there will be another release pursuant to COVID. So what we did in those cases, we worked with communities, whether faith-based institutions, whether Jewish services, whether the Archdiocese of Newark, the AME missionary churches, a wide variety. And we have something called our ambassador program. And the role of the ambassador program is to provide for support for people that are coming out. So when you come out, literally, you need, excuse me, but you need underwear, you need socks, you need toiletries.
Oh, yeah.
Women need feminine hygiene products. And so what we try to directly link, we will literally be at Edna Mahan State Prison for Women. We'll be at Northern State. We'll be at our state prisons to hand out these survival kits and try to link people to services. And if I can, the new Commissioner of Corrections, Victoria Kuhn, has been tremendous. I'd also like to give out a shout out to the Governor's Chief of Staff, George Helmy, because he helped to make sure that people were able to say, hey, my name is Jim McGreevey, and I want Ronnie to contact me to help me provide for these reentry services. That's so important, because people, when they're walking out of those prison doors, Ron, whether it's, 18 months or 18 years, they want to get out. And so what we believe is so critically important is that we offer a thoughtful, detailed, rigorous program that addresses their concerns. But the first thing we need is to make sure that we know where Jim is, How do we contact you by email? How do we contact you by phone? Who's that other significant person in your life so that we have access to you and we can follow up, follow up, follow up.
Okay. Now, how many people each year goes through this program
Sure. Thank you.
in the state?
Good. We have so we have 13,000 people enrolled. We have actually more people enrolled in New Jersey Reentry than there are inmates behind the walls now. But these 13 people have all different lengths of stay. So what typically happens is everyone's required to go through an orientation. We're sort of, I say to my Republican friends, they should like the fact that the program is so buttoned up and detailed. My father, God bless him, used to tell me all the time, plan your work and work your plan. I like to think of ourselves, and I mean this with high praise, as the McDonald's of reentry. And that is that every site, we do the same thing, and hopefully we do it well. And so when the person comes out for orientation, they have the biopsychosocial, they're referred to federal and state benefits. We link them to sober, structured housing. And then we grapple with some of their legal issues, obviously mental health and medical issues. And then we have something called the Governor's Training and Reentry Center, where we have training. So if somebody wants to become, whether it's HVAC, I don't even know what HVAC stands for, Ronnie, but it's air conditioning heating. I don't know what
Yeah, it's got to do with that. Yeah,
heating, ventilation, and air
I think
conditioning.
it's like heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, right?
There you
Something
go.
like that.
So, but whether it's HVAC, whether it's a peer recovery coach, whether it's Cisco certification for routing, we provide for all of these courses at our Kearney Training Center. A really magnanimous woman by the name of Wendy New donated a 25,000 square foot, 3-story building where we have training. And so the whole goal is that when I come out and after I'm stabilized, after I'm consistent, after acting appropriately, then I can go to training. And that training is provided by the New Jersey Reentry Corporation. And the other important point, if I could make, Ron, is that for people coming out of prison and they haven't been in a school, whether in a year or 2 years or 5 years, learning can be intimidating. Reading can be intimidating.
Oh yeah, of course.
So it's also sad. I mean, the reality that many of our program participants have not had the education that I would have wanted them to have. Their reading proficiency is at 4th or 5th grade, their math proficiency. And so we work diligently to bring up their scores. And so, like, in the information age, I mean, case in point, Jim McGreevey was grappling with the microphone and the volume at the outset of this show. It's difficult for people that have been in prison for significant swaths of time, Ron, and have never, and if I can, one thing, if I could pray for a change, and God willing with Commissioner Kuhn, is people in prison need to touch a computer. And this isn't terribly profound, and this isn't terribly insightful or creative, but the notion that someone can be in state prison and never touch a computer and expect that person to write out an application is almost preposterous. And so we work with a great organization in Newark called One Huddle, the Arabic number one, Huddle, Huddle. And the great thing, what we do is we help to enhance the technical proficiency of our clients. But the important thing is to recognize, one, that so many of them come out with less proficiency than a 3rd grade child would have as to technology, or a 4th or 5th grade child would have as to language and mathematics. And so we have to ramp up their skill level quickly so that they can compete in this economy. And so that's a primary focus for us.
Okay, now, Governor, what is the average age of the person who enters this program?
Oh, so we take all comers. I mean, we believe in for me, for St. Paul, radical hospitality. I mean, and that is we take, but I would say, and it changes a little bit from bluntly from site to site.
Hmm.
In the Hackensack Bergen site, we have a lot of younger folks,
Okay.
bluntly, that are grappling with addiction, predominantly heroin addiction. In Newark, we have some of the older guys that I like to deal with. Um, they're a little older and they're a little wiser. I mean, sometimes it's frustrating for me when I'm talking to a 27-year-old who has all the answers and they're in a jumpsuit in a county jail, and I'm like, good Lord, I feel like my dad. But so it's I would say the average age, Ronnie, is probably between like around 25 to 33, but we see outliers. We see
Okay.
young guys. I mean, the reality is not all young guys and gals get with the program at 19 or 20, which is unfortunate. They've got to get knocked around a few times before, God willing, they realize that they don't want to do this. And then there are those that my friend Calvin Bass just got out after 38 years in prison. Um, Here's a classic case. He went in when he was 14 years old.
Wow.
He was there to murder. He didn't partake in it, but it was felony murder, and just came out after 38 years, and now grappling literally with reacculturating himself, not only to the world and to his neighborhood, but in terms of healthcare issues and being a productive member of society and employment.
Okay. Now, Governor, can you walk me through the process, right? So if I'm an inmate, right, and I'm just about to, get out of prison, what is the step-by-step, procedure that I take to try to apply for like this program?
So, Ronnie, this is like the best interview, because it's practical. It's like this is
Right.
like
Yeah.
practical. So what we wanted, I mean, not to go. So we have a little push and pull with the Department of Corrections. I want every person to automatically be sent to New Jersey Reentry, and unfortunately, all the I'm going to bite my tongue so I don't get into trouble. All the they say, well, but in any event, so people can opt in. I think they should be
Okay.
mandatorily, because at the end of the day, if I've been in prison for 5 years or 10 years, I don't want to hear from the Department of Corrections. I get that. And
Right.
it may be only until I'm 6 months home. And then the other point, Ronnie, is that about 40% of our guys and gals couch surf for the first 4 to 6 months. They'll come home and they'll stay at their mother's or their friends or their aunts or grandmother's couch, which was actually a little difficult in the time of COVID, because there were concerns from family members. You're coming home from prison after a huge swath of time. And I mean, and particularly when people were symptomatic,
Hmm.
that was a major concern during the public health emergency release. And we also see it now. So if Jim McGreevey is coming out and I have a temperature of, 101.5 by virtue of a flu, and I go to a shelter, that shelter properly will turn me away, and it becomes really difficult for us to house that person. And
Right.
so we worked with houses of worship, etc. So what happens, let me just go back to your threshold question. What happens is every person, God willing, walks out of the Department of Corrections will get a flyer. We'll have a 24/7 hotline number. They will be told based on their address or their county. If you're in Bergen, you're going to go to our office in Hackensack. If you're in Hudson County, Jersey City, Essex, Newark, Union, Elizabeth, Middlesex, New Brunswick, etc., and you're going to show up that Monday at 8:30 in the morning, and then you're going to go through that week orientation. During that course of that orientation, we're going to make sure your threshold needs are addressed. I mean, and God bless some people. They say, well, we're going to get you this and that, and I'm like, my guys need to eat now,
Right.
today. And so, Ron, I want to be charitable. It's just like people, all of us have to understand, we may not have all grappled with addiction. We might not have all grappled with imprisonment, but we all human beings. I don't know if you remember Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, whether it's shelter, whether it's food, whether it's medicine, whether it's love, whether it's employment, whether it's purpose. We all have those needs. And so because somebody has a jacket on, I would argue it's even more difficult, because if you're coming out with just your NJ Department of Corrections ID card, that's not going to do a lot for you in terms of accessing, whether it's an apartment or renting, et cetera. So what we try to do is we work with food banks, and I want to give a shout out to the Community Food Bank of New Jersey and Hillside and Ocean County and some of the major food banks, and dear friends of mine in Fairfield, John, I could go on and on. Some of my friends in Bergen County. But so we provide foodstuffs. We make sure you have immediate shelter. During the public health emergency, we had people sleeping on cots in church sanctuaries. But traditionally, we work through the boards of social services, through the counties, and the counties do great work. What we would like to see is we would like to see people to be better prepared when they leave prison. We'd like to see them leave prison with a motor vehicle commission ID. We'd like to see them leave prison with a Medicaid card. So if they have a heroin addiction and they need to get MAT, they need to get medicine, they can go to a pharmacist to get that. It becomes a little difficult if only they have, Ronnie, is their NJDOC card. They don't have a Medicaid card, then we have to scramble. So basically what we do is we'll provide all those services, but the long-term goal is stability as to housing, stability as to food, stability as to medicine, addressing past legal challenges, and then lastly, employment and training.
Okay. Now, for those that you place into like shelter, into housing, is there a requirement that those people need to be like vaccinated for COVID or?
So great question. So we promote vaccination, and we strongly promote vaccination. Not all of our clients agree because of what they've heard or what they believe. And so that becomes problematic, particularly if they're symptomatic. And in those cases, when they don't have a vaccination card, when they don't have a booster card, and I don't mean to be flippant, but I mean, they'll tell me how dangerous a vaccine is. And at the same time is, they're shooting up heroin. And I'm like, I don't think you're asking your dealer. And, so I just, and it's like a lot of times these are young guys and gals, and they're influenced by what they hear around them. One friend of mine said, someday you're going to get your like jaw knocked off. But I try to treat them like I would treat my kids,
or like your son or daughter, right?
Like, yeah, it's like, what are you crazy? I mean, you're gonna get so sick when you get this bloody virus. You have underlying conditions because of your history of addiction. I mean, like, you're on the corner of ABC Community buying dope, and now you're concerned about the Food and Drug Administration clinical trials. Like, stop it. It's like it's insanity. It's just like I'm too old to deal with this. Get the bloody vaccine.
I mean, there are people that have concerns about the vaccine, and that's fine, right? But it's just funny when someone who's shooting up heroin is having concerns about vaccine, right?
It's sad, and it's just sort of like, so my point is to make sure, like, my job, Ronnie, at the end of the day, my job is different from, I used to be a prosecutor, and I work closely with a lot of the public defenders, but I see my job as different. I see my mission. If it's not my job, my mission, my values is to try to make that young guy or young gal as healthy and as capable and as wonderful as, for me, God created them. And it's understanding that whatever has happened in their life, whether it's their addiction, whether it's chaos, whether it's a gang, that we're with you for the long haul. We're not going away, but you have to play by the rules. And part of the rules, I mean, is sobriety. I realize you're going to fall down. I realize you may use, but you have to get back up. And then for those that, and I'm completely, and by sobriety, I don't mean, I mean, I include medication assisted treatment. I include psych. I include
Right.
mental health support.
Well, Governor, let me ask you, and in order to make sure that these people are keeping sober, if they're in the program, is there like a mandatory, like, check, like
Yes. Oh,
blood
yeah.
test?
Oh, yeah. So we work with with a wide variety of providers, and that, it's everything. It got a little difficult, candidly, Ronnie, doing COVID and the public health emergency because people weren't meeting in person. But traditionally, it's urine testing, traditionally, and so and my dear friend, Dr. Aaron Zerbo and Dr. Caitlin Bastone at Cooper, I mean, they've educated me. I'm still a little, I'm still probably, my daughter would say, a lot old-fashioned, but I, the point is that you have to move to stabilization. You can't live in crisis. And if you're going to be able to have a job and have employment, if the job starts at 8 o'clock, you have to be there at 8 o'clock. You can't be there at 8:05. You can't be there at 8:20. You have to be there at 8 o'clock, and you have to be willing to work. And part of work means that your healthcare needs have to be stabilized, you have to be appropriately dressed, and you have to have the tools necessary. And so that's why we believe the Reentry Training Center is so important. We're going to have, Ronnie, 1,500 people go through the training center this year to get industry recognized credentials. And those credentials are going to allow them, if you will, to outpace or overtake their felony conviction because of their expertise, because of the HVAC license or the Cisco certification in routing and networking. So, but part of this is there have to be rules of engagement. And, I'll just say this, that so many of the young folks we deal with, they might not have had a lot of rule makers in their life, but they respond really well. And they want to work. I often said, about a month ago, we had a major job fair with Cynthia Rojas, our senior employment specialist at Newark, at our National Action Network site in Newark. And Guy, I said bluntly, I wish, white middle-class America could see the line of young men and women who wanted to work in the worst way, who were dressed to the nines. And when they get the job, I mean, it's just like, we all want the same thing. But bluntly, I often say, when we talk about, second chances, many of these young men and women never had a first chance. So that's what we try to do. And then I'll get myself in trouble. I also believe the importance of associating with a house of worship, whether it's a shul or mosque or church or AA or NA, because people, place, and things, who you associate with influences your behavior. And it's about living a virtuous life, trying not to make the same bloody mistakes all over again. It's going to happen, but trying not to make that a pattern of behavior, and having a sense of awareness of doing what we say, the next right thing. And that's important to us, doing the next right thing.
Okay. Now, Governor, back to the urine test, right? So if someone in the program is tested and it's been found that they have drugs in their system, are they automatically kicked out, or do they get a second chance,
No.
or how does that work?
It's so funny. I used to be the hard guy, Ronnie. I've become the softie. It's just sort of like, I used to become like the hard one. And as I get older, I realize that, addiction is addiction. And if they're trying, not to be biblical, but you forgive 70 times 7. And I realize we can't do that in an addiction treatment program, but we can make sure, if someone is sincerely trying and they're moving in the right direction. And I'll just say this, that, and you've got brilliant people like Petros Lavonis at Rutgers, Stanford, Dr. Aaron Zerbo. They'll all tell you is that fentanyl is so pernicious. Fentanyl is so corrosive. It's not like heroin. I've had the guys and gals tell me that heroin and fentanyl are two different, profoundly different worlds. And so that if people are moving, and then the other thing is, Ronnie, is people are coming out of prison or jail, and they're taking gabapentin, they're taking Seroquel, they're taking a fixer. If they need those pharmacological products as recommended by a doctor after a rigorous review, that's one thing. But what we try to move them in a direction of healthy stability and consistency. So do we kick them out of the program? No. I mean, that's the one area that I've gotten really, and I shouldn't even say soft, because it's not soft. I think that's the area where I've gotten more rational.
Okay. All right.
And by the way, one of the things we just saw when we just had this conference this Friday, and if you could look at our website with veterans.
Okay.
It was a young Marine who had done a tour of duty in Afghanistan, and he was on his way home, Ron. He had smoking a joint with his friends, which obviously, we don't condone or encourage. But based on this urine test, he received an other than honorable discharge. And that's what's so disconcerting dealing with these veterans, because there are upwards of 8,000 veterans in New Jersey that have received other than or less than honorable discharge. And for these, and that's dating back to maybe guys in Nam as well as more recently. But for these young gals and guys that have come home, particularly from Iraq and Afghanistan, and are discharged, and I understand the role of the field commander, but unfortunately the VA benefits are often tied to the discharge classification. So if you don't have an honorable discharge or general discharge, if you have other than honorable discharge, often you may not get those benefits. And that, I think, is respectfully wrong, because God willing, we should want people who wore this nation's uniform. We should return them to their families, at least hopefully in the place in which they came to serve the nation.
Absolutely, because they are heroes, right? And I think the work that you're doing for the New Jersey Reentry is phenomenal, and keep up the great job. So now I'd like to maybe dedicate the last maybe 10-15 minutes of our conversation to maybe about in regards to your past life in politics, because I know that's what a lot of people want to hear, right?
Sure.
It's been nearly 18 years, right, since you left office, right? Do you miss being in the public life, or what do you miss most about being in public office?
As you get older, Ronnie, as you get older, at least with me, I found my value system changing. I loved the game. I loved the scrap. I remember the thrust and parry, the organizations. I was blessed with two amazing parents having a great work ethic, support at home in terms of my wife. So I loved it.
I think I read somewhere that by the age of 36, you had already won 3 separate elections, right?
Yeah, which showed which showed deep underlying psychological. But in any event, but I loved election. You know what? I love people. I love people. Whether it's you or me or listeners, everybody has, what's great about America. It's, I was at, where was I? I was at church yesterday at a church in Jersey City. So they were preparing for the feast day of the Virgin, for a Dominican feast day. There was a Nigerian priest there. There was me as an Irishman. There was an older Hungarian gentleman there, and it was just like, you just talk about where we come from
Mhm.
and our families and their struggles. And for me, that generation, our parents or grandparents' generation who came to this country, whether from Zhejiang province or from Ireland or from wherever they came from, because they wanted life better for their kids. They wanted life. They wanted a measure of economic security. They wanted an educational value. So I just find people rich. What do I miss? Um, I you know I've worked with a lot of great people. Um, I
Do you miss the hustle of, like, campaigning, of going out there, of
Yeah,
shaking
I do.
hands and raising money and
No, not raising money.
no, no,
No, money. I'll just tell you, I don't think there's anybody who enjoys raising money.
no.
It's like a bloody,
Oh
awful
yeah,
experience. And I also think it's a corrosive impact on our democracy because, the people that are giving, they're not giving because, we're the little sisters of the poor. They're
right.
giving because they want influence. And I get that. I think the British system, they have a much shorter campaign period, a much more robust public financing mechanism. And I think there should be complete disclosure of who's giving money. I think the Supreme Court, in the Citizens United decision, respectfully, I think all of money, the public, whether people give a darn or don't, they should know where the money's coming from and to whom it's giving.
Right.
So no, I don't miss the money, but I loved campaigning. I loved campaigning. It was great.
Now, Governor, you were assemblyman from 1990 to 92, right? And then you
Yes.
stepped down, and then you became a state senator from 94, right? So
Yeah.
why didn't you stay on in the assembly and then run for senator in 94? Like,
Well, let me just tell you two quick stories.
sure.
So what had happened was I got kicked off the Middlesex County line,
Uh-oh.
and it was subsequent to redistricting. Carteret, my old hometown, came back into the district. So Tommy Deverin, God rest his soul, was an old family friend. In fact, I got my prosecutor's office on. Just quick story. I applied. I gone to school, gone to college, gone to law school, gone to graduate school, and I applied to become a Middlesex County prosecutor. I couldn't get a job. Ronnie, I couldn't get a job. I had private jobs from private law firms. I couldn't get a job with the Middlesex County prosecutor's office.
Why is that? I
Well,
mean, your credentials are stellar.
so what happens was Tommy Deverin sees my father at 12 o'clock mass at St. Joseph's Church in Carteret and says, "How's Jimmy doing?" And my father says, "Jimmy's great, but he wants a job at the Middlesex County prosecutor's office." He says, "Tell him to call the prosecutor on Tuesday at 12 o'clock and he'll get an interview." And I'm like, "Oh, that's how it's done." But in any event, no, but it's so much of life is about relationships.
Right.
But yeah, no, I wanted to be a prosecutor. So I think, when I reflect back, what I miss is I loved, the campaigning. I love the people, but I also like, making things. It's crazy though, running when I talk to people now, it's like people are excited about motor vehicle commission when things were better.
Well, I spoke to someone today who is a staunch Republican, and he told me, he was like, "Oh, the only time that the MVC ever worked was when Jim McGreevey was governor."
Well, and that's thanks to my dear friend Jamie Foxx, and it was good friends with Loretta and Diane LaGreedy. But it was MVC, Easy Pass, making people's lives better. And like when I talk about reentry, it's about having, like, how do you expect somebody to go to work if they're living in a shelter? They,
Right.
they can't. And it's making sure somebody has that Medicaid card so they can get that vaccine. Making sure that somebody has that education class so they can get that skill to get at that HVAC job or to get that Cisco certification. It's for me, politics, God willing, is about making it work in discernible ways to improve people's lives.
Okay. Now, can I ask you, Governor, what are your thoughts on this past election, 2021? the race for governor and everything else. Because as you know, Governor Murphy became the first Democratic governor since Brendan Byrne to be to be elected twice. When
Yes.
you saw that happen, were you kind of like jealous, like, oh damn, that it should have been me?
No, oh no, Lord, God knows, no, no. But I think, and I think the governor, and I think Jack Citarelli, I think Jack ran they both ran a really good campaign. I think obviously New Jersey, as in Virginia, or the two states in the off year, the first year, and I think it also reflected a national trend. Which I think, it clearly, in terms of Democrats, in terms of 2022, in terms of the congressional elections, people need to be aware of the fact. And so I think, respectfully, it's about doing practical nuts and bolts changes that improve people's lives. I also think people are frustrated with COVID, and I get that. I'm frustrated with COVID.
Right.
And my daughter yells at me all the time about the bloody mask. But I think there's a sense of frustration out there. So I think that both Virginia and New Jersey were impacted to a degree by the national atmospherics, as it will always be.
Now, are you surprised by the fact that Governor Murphy was reelected by such a small margin? Because everyone thought that he would win by double digits, by 10, 13 points. But when all was said and done, he won by I believe it was like 2.5%, right?
Yes.
So do you think that's a reflection of maybe the Democratic policies that the people of the state are not happy with, or what do you think?
I lost you again. Good Lord. I heard the question. I think it was. I think to Ronnie, I think it was a process of the national atmospherics. I think the national atmospherics impacted the race. I think COVID probably was largely the defining aspect of the race. But I think you saw both in Virginia as well as in New Jersey the significant, I don't want to say collapse, but decline of Democratic majorities within the last 2 weeks, and I think you saw that, and I think that had an impact.
Okay, now
unfortunately, my bloody phone is now. I can't hear you again.
Okay, because I have a few more questions.
So, Ronnie, what this means is that we're going to have to do a part 2.
Okay, sure.
Okay. I can read your lips. Okay, sure. But let me just say thank you. I just want to say thank you to you, Ronnie. I want to thank you for you, and I want to say thank you to the listening audience. If I can just say thank you to everybody who understands the importance of second chances, of new beginnings. If anybody's interested in joining our ambassador program, if you could look at, and Ronnie's been kind enough to post the site, www.njreentry, NJREENTRY, thanks Ron.org. If anybody's interested in, and I would just say there's nothing more heartening than second chances, allowing people to understand the dignity and worth of themselves and the beauty and value of good work. And with that, Ronnie, I want to say thank you, and to all of Bergen County and Real Talk with Ronnie. You may actually have to suffer hearing Jim McGreevey again.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you.
Thank you, Ronnie. Godspeed. Take care and have a great week.
You too.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that was my interview with Governor Jim McGreevey. That was, I had so many questions, but because of the technical difficulties, I wasn't able to ask them. But, as the governor said, what that means is that we will have a part 2, right? We will have a part 2. We had some questions here from our audience that I wanted to ask. I will save them for next time for our part 2. But, I want to thank the governor for coming on my show tonight to talk about his work with the, New Jersey Reentry Program. I think it's a great program to help people that are just getting out of prison, to give them a second chance, right? And as the governor was, saying, some of these people never even had a first chance, right? So I think it's so important to get these people, once they are out of prison, acclimated, find them home, food, shelter, jobs, right? So they can get on with their lives and make a positive contribution to our society. If you want to learn more about the reentry program, go to njreentry.org. Okay, njreentry.org. The governor is currently serving as the chairman of the board there, and I think they're doing great work. We have a question here from Diana. Governor, do you feel you are making a greater change as a governor or within your work at New Jersey Reentry? We will save that question, Diana, for our part 2 with Governor Jim McGreevey. We have a comment here from Mike Coons, who, actually was an opponent of the governor. They actually ran for governor in 2001. I believe Mike Coons was the nominee for the Conservative Party. So, but this is his comment. Jim, it's good to see you. I ran alongside you and Brett with NJCP, and I debated at the Clinton Inn, and know you will keep doing the good work. Okay, great. So, Mr. Coons, Mike, we will save that question, that comment for next time when we have the governor back on. Okay. I had so many questions. I wanted to ask him about his time in office, about what he did afterwards, what his regrets are, what he hopes to do in the future. Okay, because when the governor moved to Jersey City in 2015, there was a lot of speculation that perhaps he wanted to run for mayor of Jersey City. That, of course, didn't happen. But I really wanted to know if Governor Jim McGreevey plans on running for office again in the near future. So we will see, right? Because it's all about second chances, right? So I think maybe if anyone wants to get a second chance, I think Jim McGreevey will certainly be up for that task. All right. In any case, so this was a blockbuster show. We hope that you can share this interview, right? Share it, like it with all your friends, with all your family members. And of course, go to njreentry.org and check it out, right? If you know people that are just getting out of prison that may need a helping hand, a second chance, tell them to go to that site. And on there, it will give you the information about what you need to do to sign up for the program. All right. I believe they have many different branches, right? I think like 8 or 9 branches. So just check out that site. And we will be back this Wednesday. This Wednesday, we will have a discussion with some of my good friends. Well, with my one good friend, Mike Reyes, who's been a regular on this show. As you know, he is big in the crypto, Bitcoin, that field. So we're going to talk to him and 2 other panelists about what exactly is Bitcoin, what is crypto, right? Because I hear about it, but for one, I'm kind of like confused about what it, about what it really is. So it'd be good to learn from Mike and his friends this Wednesday about what exactly is crypto. So we're going to have a conversation on cryptocurrency, on Bitcoin, and all that jazz. And of course, we'll be back next Sunday with 2 new guests, right? I believe next Sunday on my show, we have Todd Calaguar on. He is running for county executive in Bergen County. And of course, we also have Mr. Robert Lancia on. Robert Lancia is running for Congress in Rhode Island. So, this show, we've gone national. So now we talk to not only people in New Jersey, we talk to people from all over the country. And of course, we talk to Republicans, we talk to Democrats, we talk to everybody. That's what makes this show Real Talk. Okay. So, of course, if you feel that you have a great story to share, if you want to come on, please email us at realtalkwithronnie@gmail.com. Okay. And as always, please follow us and like us on Facebook and on YouTube. Please subscribe to our channel. We will be back next Sunday, January 30th at 8 p.m. And of course, we'll be back this coming Wednesday as well. Okay. So you are now watching Real Talk with Ronnie. My name is Ronald Lynn. Thank you for joining me on this Sunday night. And I will see you all very, very soon. Okay. Wish you a very great Sunday, a great week, and I'll see you all on Wednesday. Goodbye.